Hey, is this thing on? Hello? Hit it again. I think it's on now. Welcome to Hiker Trash Radio, where each week, Doc will drag some colorful characters out of the woods to talk trail and Type 2 fun. If you're aspiring hiker trash, or if you're just looking to understand the hiker trash in your life, look no further. So lace up those boots, gnaw on some jerky, and settle into your 20-mile pace as we fire up the podcast from somewhere deep in the backcountry. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail. Dirtbags, hiker trash, and of course, good smelling day hikers. I'm Doc, and this is Hiker Trash Radio. If you like what we're doing here, help us out. Take just a minute. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you don't like what we're doing, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right, let's get to this week's guest, a repeat customer with some big stories to share. Welcome back to Hiker Trash Radio, through hiker and outdoor badass, Jacob Pepper. How's it going, Jacob?
Great, Doc. Thanks for having me back on the show.
Absolutely. And we say welcome back, but this is your first time on Hiker Trash Radio. You were on when we were previously named the John freaking Muir Pod.
That's right. Yeah. You discovered me because I tagged John freaking Muir on a picture of me standing with a cardboard cutout of John Muir. So yeah, it's cool. The rebrand. I like it.
You like it? Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. So, Jacob, are you hiker trash?
Yeah, I mean, it's tattooed to my toes.
And have you experienced a hiker trash moment out there? I mean, what kind of trail cred do you have?
Watching my skin come off as a brown, salty sludge after not showering for 12 days and 400 miles. How's that?
Brown, salty sludge. That might be the trail name of the episode tonight.
Hopefully not.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, you have been a busy guy since the last time we talked, and I can't wait to hear what you've been up to. But before we get there, remind us what your trail name is.
My trail name is Crush.
Crush. And how did you come by Crush? Is it related to Finding Nemo?
That's what we always told people on the PCT. It's like an easy answer. I kind of have that surfer talk. People would ask me if I was from California when I was a kid, and I would always say, no, I learned to talk from the Ninja Turtles. That's not actually where the name comes from, as fitting as it is. Basically, one of my friends on the PCT caught me crushing on multiple other hikers. And they started saying, no, Crush is crushing again. And it stuck.
Crush is quick to fall in love.
I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, not at all. All right. Hey, last time you're on, we had something towards the end of the episode called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. That has also been rebranded. That is now called the Hiking Hack. That's where I will turn to you. Same concept, though. I'm going to turn to you and ask you to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. So don't be surprised when we get there.
Great.
Okay.
Trailblazers Toolkit.
That's right. It's time for the Trailblazers Toolkit, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. Crush, I love to talk about gear on the podcast. Love to hear about the most important item in my guest adventure gear. So if you were preparing for your next adventure and I was the one providing you with all your gear, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? Give me all the specifics on that piece of gear. Tell me why you've got to have it out there. And this could be any kind of item. It could be gear. It could be apparel. It could be a luxury item. So, Crush, what is that item in your toolkit?
A cotton bandana.
Cotton bandana. Okay.
Yeah, man. On this hike, most recent hike on the Arizona Trail, more than ever, I realized how valuable that is to me. When I first started through hiking, I would actually tie it to my shoulder strap so it was always within reach. I'm basically talking about a sweat/snot rag. I can't function without it. And on the AZT, it was so hot and disgusting. And I was cranking through electrolytes. So I had salty sweat coming out of me the entire hike, as we've already touched on. And if I wasn't able to wipe my face off, I mean, there were times where even when I was able to, I was like getting salt in my eyes and, you know, couldn't see practically. So I need to have, and now I use a pack with a bottom pocket. So, you know, my snacks are in there, and on the outside of the bottom pocket at all times is a bandana that I can just grab, pull out, and wipe my face off. So, yeah, I think that that's actually like one of the most important things I'm carrying with me at all times.
Nice. Now, do you ever get snot in your eye if you've used the bandana before you wipe?
I'm sure that I have. There's another hiker trash moment for you.
That's right. That's right. Fantastic. All right. Hey, let's keep talking about gear, and we'll do that with
It's the hiking pole.
the hiking pole. And you'll remember that that's pole spelled with 2 L's, like a survey, not like the thing you carry in your hand out there. This is a 7-question survey you've already taken. This is a 7-question survey. It's going to help me give you a score on the sanity scale from 1 to 100, with 1 being completely insane and 100 being completely sane. There is an automatic 25-point deduction for anybody who's done the rim to rim to rim trail in 8 hours. So your highest possible score today is 75.
Right on.
Okay. Now, since you have taken this before, I'm going to change up the questions, keep you off balance a little bit.
Okay.
All right. So 7 brand new questions for you, still all related to hiking. So interested to hear, you know, which side of the issue you fall on these, and then also make sure that you give me some explanation behind your answer. That'll help me calculate your answer, calculate your score even better.
Will do.
All right. Question number 1. When you are out on the trail and you happen to be with others out there, what are the top 3 topics of conversation on the trail for you?
Do the farts push the poop out, or does the poop push the farts out?
Okay. Bodily functions. Yes. Bodily functions always high on the list, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, that's through hiking, man.
That's right.
Yeah, I've never met so many people that I could have that conversation with in my life.
And what is the consensus on that answer? It's almost like chicken and egg, right?
Oh, it's definitely chicken and egg. And I'm telling you, if you got 100 through hikers and you ask them this question, you get, you know, probably a 50-50 split with a whole lot of philosophical discourse.
Deep philosophical discourse. That's what we need out there.
Okay.
Right.
So also, you know, a lot of like, what are you listening to? You know, when you're doing big days and you are hanging out with the same tramily, say, so you're always waking up and getting to camp with the same people, or often. A big conversation for me, at least, is like, what book are you listening to, or what kind of music motivates you to hike? You know, so that comes up a lot.
When you've asked that question, has anybody ever said, I'm listening to Hiker Trash Radio?
Not yet.
Okay. Fingers crossed. Sometime soon.
Yeah. And then I guess my other favorite topic to discuss on trail is, you know, headphones out. What are you hearing in nature? What are you seeing in nature? You know, wildlife interactions, serene views, the beauty of the natural world, right? Like that's a huge part of why we're out there. And if the conversation isn't going in that direction, I kind of try to steer it that way sometimes, because that's, you know, important to me.
Now, corollary question. This is not an official question on the poll, but I'm curious. Do big mile pushers miss out on what they're walking through?
You know, I used to think that, but most recently, the last week of the Arizona Trail, I did 211 miles in 7 days, which was huge for me. I mean, I've never done anything like that in my life. And in spite of that, I was almost more immersed in, say, like wildlife interactions, because I'm waking up at 4:30 in the morning and I'm getting to camp 3 hours after dark, and still finding time to take breaks at beautiful places in the middle of the day, because if I didn't, my legs would go out from under me. So, you know, I used to say like, oh, are you even experiencing the miles that you're hiking? The reality is, for me at least, I'm not moving any faster. If anything, I'm moving slower because when you're hiking for 14 hours straight as opposed to 8 to 10, uh, you got to pace yourself, you know? So I have just as much interaction with the world around me while doing big days.
Maybe even more. I mean, you're out
Maybe,
there seeing more of it, longer duration.
yeah, I think so.
All right. Good perspective. It's not that you sped up and you're covering 30 miles in 8 hours. You're just longer duration.
Right.
Okay. Question number 2 on the poll. Best trail name encountered out there.
Oh man. All right. Wow. I don't want to steal this dude's thunder. Like he should have the opportunity to tell this story himself, but it absolutely blew my mind. So I'm gonna share it.
Okay.
Sorry, not sorry. Unbreakable. So Unbreakable. I want to say he was 16 or 17 when I met him this spring. I wasn't able to hike because if you recall or have listened to the first episode that I was on, I was deep in recovery from like a near death car accident all winter and spring. So in the spring, I was carrying people to the southern terminus of the AZT repeatedly. And that was a lot of fun. It was a way for me to kind of give back to the community, do some trail angel work, which I've never done. So through that, I met the Field Trip 5. If you haven't heard of them, I'm pretty sure that's their Instagram handle, like at the field trip _5. It's a mom and her 4 boys, and it's a crew of badasses. They're amazing. I hiked down to the southern terminus with them, which is like less than 2 miles, and these kids hit the trail at like 4 miles per hour. And after that, they went straight to the CDT. So anyways, one of these kids is named Unbreakable, and his mom told me the whole story while we're driving from Tucson to Mexico for them to start the hike. And I was just floored by it. Basically, I'm going to misremember some of the details, and he'll have to correct me when he's on the podcast eventually, I'm sure. He hurt himself while he was hiking, in his upper leg, in his thigh. He's like, oh, mom, like I'm in so much pain. Like what happened to my leg? Nothing happened. It was just suddenly he was in a lot of pain. And then it was to the point where he was like holding up the group, and it became like a situation, and they had to have a family meeting and talk about like, yo, if you need to stop, like we'll all stop with you, we don't have to keep pushing. Just, you don't have to feel like you're dragging everybody down or making us quit. Like this is a group activity and a group decision-making process. And he said, no, like I'll push through. And he did. And he was good. After a while, he's like limping for like 2 weeks, and then he's good. And then the same thing happens to his other leg. He's like, oh man, what is wrong with my legs? Like my other leg is now doing the same pain. And granted, this kid is he's a teenager, so his like, what do you call that, all that growth plate stuff, like he's like experiencing puberty while he's on trail, right? His bones are getting longer, and they're already crushing, like doing bigger miles than I've ever done. And so his other leg starts giving him trouble. And I don't want to like blow up their spot. I think they sort of got in trouble. Somebody was like, yo, what are you doing dragging your kid through this whole hiking experience? He's clearly limping. Like, I'm calling social services. And so long story short, they end up at a doctor's office for this kid's leg issue. And the doctor has a theory, and they x-ray both of his legs. And by this time, he's already overcome the issue, and he's like ready to keep hiking. Long story short, he had fractured his femurs while hiking and hiked through it.
Wow. That is some serious badassery right there.
Yeah, what? Like the level of pain tolerance that went into that, like that kid is on another level. And my jaw is like dragging on the road behind us while we're in the car going, I just couldn't believe that story is just surreal. So, Unbreakable has a little bit of a irony to it because to get that name, he broke both of his legs at separate times over the course of like a couple months on trail and pushed through it. And he was fine. Like his legs, it was fractures, right? So they healed up. Like you know what I mean? They didn't have to set the bone or anything like that.
Yeah. So if you think you're having a bad day at work or a bad day on the trail, you're not walking on broken femurs. All right.
Yeah. Wow.
That is crazy. Absolutely crazy. I've got to look them up. The Field Trip 5.
That's them.
Okay. Question number 3 on the poll. Toilet paper, bidet, leaves, snow, or something else?
See, what are we talking about now? The poop conversation.
That's right.
Even you're bringing it up.
That's right.
All right. So I've always defaulted to toilet paper. But I recently discovered a new method. So this summer I did the Colorado Trail and I met this kid, Maxwell, who is young and a new hiker. And he was really excited to try out a method that he learned from Andrew Skirka. I don't follow Skirka, so I wasn't aware of this. And I was like, oh, that sounds questionable. And then I gave it a shot and I was like, hey, that's all right. It works. At least for this is going to be really gross, at least for a first wipe. To clean up some mess before I go in with the toilet paper. Sticks and rocks, just like caveman style.
Sticks and rocks. That's a new option I need to add to the list.
Yeah, right. I had never heard that before. Leaves, of course, but and this kid, Maxwell, he finds a really smooth stick where the bark has come off. And he's like, this is a good example of a stick to use. And I was like, okay. And then, I gave it a shot and I was like, I can really conserve toilet paper and in a pinch, survive without it. And at a bare minimum, use significantly less of it. So yeah, I've totally been employing that ever since. Thanks, Maxwell.
That's very interesting, but I still think there's a point deduction there. So question number 4, breakfast in camp, on trail, or no breakfast?
Usually breakfast in my tent. I do the cold soaked oatmeal with breakfast essentials. So just shake it up and then eat it like cereal. Since we talked last, I have basically eradicated Pop-Tarts from my breakfast routine. That whole thing about eating dry food first thing in the morning. I mean, you were right. It's not really my favorite thing. And usually once Pop-Tarts have been in your pack for 20 miles, they're like a bag of crumbs anyway.
They're a mess. Yeah.
So cold soaked oatmeal, and then, hit it. And the reason I say in my tent first thing in the morning is because here we are returning to the topic of the moment. It helps keep me regular. I usually, if I start my day that way, by the time I'm leaving camp, I've already pooped, which is really helpful for me to just get in my stride and keep going.
It's pretty impressive how much poop talk we've already had. And we've actually thrown out the phrase brown, salty sludge. And that doesn't even apply to any of the poop talk. It's almost comedic. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Question number 5. You prefer solo hiking or tramley?
Wow. So that question, my name is Crush for a reason, right? We've been over this. And I am a social person, which is funny because my whole life, I think I've, in sincerity, been more of an introvert, which, doesn't mean that you don't like people or that you can't be fun to be around or a social person. What it means is that you need private time to recharge, right? Like solo time. In spite of that, the AT, PCT, CT, all social hikes. I had at least one person near me, night 1 of the Colorado Trail. I started that trail alone. Night 1 of the Colorado Trail, I made 5 friends. We all started on 7-Eleven, so I ended up calling that crew Free Slurpee Day. You know, it's just like natural for me to like make friends, and then I have people to hike with. That said, on the Arizona Trail, I kind of went into that knowing I was starting earlier than most people. There were like 3 other people out there in front of me that all basically finished what they had started by like pine. They were like finishing hikes from the spring because of that crazy snow season or whatever. And so, you know, I didn't even meet those people. And then from like mile 300 on, I was like the only person out there SOBOing the trail. And that was amazing. I needed that so bad and gained so much from it. Confidence in myself and my abilities, solace, time to think about my reality and like who I am and, you know, why I'm doing this. And I don't know. I mean, it was invaluable. 800 miles by myself. It also got weird. You know, I talked to myself a lot and I kind of went feral and forgot that I was a person at times. But it was wonderful. So right now, you know, it's been like 10 days or something since I finished the AZT. So like that's very fresh for me and I'm feeling really in love with that experience and that feeling.
Yeah, I'm noticing some still lingering feral aspects to you. So yeah, I can see it in the eyes.
The shiftiness, right?
Now I'm intrigued because this is not an official question on the poll. It's a corollary follow-up question. You said that you had time to figure out who you are. Who are you? What did you realize about yourself?
You know, I don't know if I can even put that into words. But I'm not the same person who left on September 13th. That's for sure.
Okay. We'll leave it at that for right now. But we're going to come back to that when we get into talking about the AZT. Question number 6. I want you to rank the following in your order of preference. I'm going to give you 3 items. I want you to put it to, you know, most favorite, second most favorite, and least favorite. Okay.
Okay.
So here we go. 5 miles, severe uphill, 5 miles, severe downhill, and 20-mile road walk.
Oh, that's easy. In the order that you listed them. Any day. Like yeah, any day I will do uphill before downhill. And that's called hiking. A 20-mile road walk is something entirely different that I will only do out of necessity because it's connecting to established areas of trail. You know what I mean? I don't understand people that like run a marathon on the street through like Richmond, Virginia or Boston or New York or wherever else they happen. That like, I just did like a couple of 37-mile days on the Arizona Trail with like 14,000 feet of elevation change one day. I will choose that over a 26-mile marathon on the street. Yeah. And of course, just the way that I'm built, I guess, or maybe this is more common with everyone, but I am actually better off going uphill. It's something about the way that it works my muscles and I like get in this stride and I have to depend on my own body to pull me up. Downhills, I'm like rolling my ankles and it's like falling, you know, down the hill the entire time. That's I found coming down off of Mount Lemmon on this hike, the 4,000 foot descent from that mountain took me longer than the 4,000 foot climb the day before.
That, ladies and gentlemen, that is a hiker trash answer right there. You know, the addiction to going uphill and the aversion to just a straight flat walk. I know I complain about uphill. But I put those in the same exact order as you did right there because, you know, there's something to be said about gaining altitude and feeling a lot of satisfaction once you're up there.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Okay. Question number 7, last question in the poll. What's on your head when you're out there? Ball cap, floppy hat, straw hat, sun hoodie, or no hat, or something else?
hat, ball cap, preferably mesh. The hat that I've been wearing for the past, like, I don't know, 2,000 miles of hiking, is a fully mesh topped Gossamer Gear hat. Like, it's not even like the trucker hat usually has the front that's made of panels and the back is mesh. That hat is like 5 panels of mesh on top of your head, which I had never seen before. And I was like, this is kind of goofy looking, but it's not about the look. You know, that airflow through there is wonderful when you're caught in a breeze and you're really sweaty on one of those big climbs and you feel the air hitting the top of your head. It's really nice. Beyond that,
it's another hiker trash indication is they don't really care how they look. Right?
Well, to an extent, you know, I used to always joke like, would we even be doing this if we didn't look cool doing it? But, you know, that's also a joke. So yeah, I think you're right. Beyond that, I would wear another hat, I guess, like something with a brim. I don't understand how anybody hikes or does anything outdoors without something that casts shade over their eyes. Like if I'm wearing sunglasses without a hat on, the sun will cause glare on the inside of my sunglasses. So, and having long hair, the hat in general, whatever the hat may be, functions almost as like a way of keeping my hair out of my face. Because if I'm all sweaty and my hair's sticking to me, that's really gross, right? So
yeah, you want your hair, you want your hair out of your way so you can use your snot rag to wipe your sweat appropriately.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Crush. I got to do some math now. I need to take your answers, put them through the Hiker Trash Radio algorithm. Fingers crossed. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out. Let's say I got to carry the 2. I'm going to multiply by pi. I'm going to divide that by root 5. And I'm going to make a slight adjustment for your the level of your pain tolerance when you're hiking with a broken femur or 2. And I come up with a score of 39.
Wow. It's getting worse with every time.
What was your score the first time?
Oh, I think it was a 50.
Oh, right in the middle of the road. Yeah. You've spent some crazy time in the desert. So you have to expect that it's going to go down a little bit.
Indeed.
Okay. Hey, before we get too far on the trail, let's back up a little bit. I want you to refresh everybody's memory or tell them for the first time about this car accident you referred to, because this is something. This is a comeback story.
Yeah, so you know, everybody always is worried about thru hikers when they're out there on the trail, right? When I was on the PCT, the number of times that somebody was like, "Please be careful, you know, don't fall off a mountain." I did like all 2,700 miles of the PCT without a scratch, effectively, right? Like I wasn't injured on that hike, and within a few weeks of getting off the Pacific Crest Trail, I was staying with my 2014 PCT alumni hiker trash friends, Half Double and Shiny, and we were working on the remodel of their house, and I had just finished replumbing the whole house basically a day early. So it's like Friday morning, Half Double's out of town, and Shiny says, "Why don't we go to Sonoyta, which is like beautiful southern Arizona wine country, and have wine to like celebrate, you know, getting done with our work a little bit early." And we were all excited, and you know, it's just like any other day. Everything's great. We get all dressed up, and we're like in the car. We haven't even made it out of Tucson. We're stopped at a red light, and whoever this person was, who I've never met and never will, they weren't paying attention and didn't realize they were coming up to a red light and ran into us at like 45 miles per hour, directly rear-ended us. And I don't remember any of that. I woke up in the hospital, and Shiny had like split her head open. She had to have stitches, and she's still dealing with some other repercussions. But she was conscious for most of this and walked out of the hospital that day. I woke up like 6 hours after the accident. I had like something about me being heavier than her or something. I guess I got rocked harder. So I had like a TBI concussion, traumatic brain injury. It wasn't really as bad as that makes it sound. Like, I think I'm back to full cognitive ability at this point in my life. So that's a blessing. Everything about this situation. Yeah. I try to look at it from the positive side. Otherwise it will bring me down. Right. So, I also had like terrible, terrible whiplash injuries. I herniated 2 of the discs in my neck. I tore, my alar ligament, which is part of what holds your skull to your neck, and allows for like safe rotation of your head and all of that. But it wasn't ruptured, because if it was, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. In spite of that, over the course of a few months, it was a really, really dark time. I wasn't really sure how it was going to pan out. I think I said to you last time, like, I wasn't, I was nervous about talking about it because I didn't know if it was going to get worse or if I was going to find myself like in a situation to never do what I love to do again. When I mentioned hiker trash being tattooed to my toes, I gave myself that tattoo this winter as sort of an act of defiance against the reality that I was facing. And the neurosurgeon who told me that it was a good idea for me to have spinal fusion surgery in my neck. And I went to physical therapy, and the physical therapists were like, no way, man. Like, you're a hiker. You're like in good shape for your age. You're doing fine. We're going to keep you out of surgery. And I did physical therapy for a few months and kind of overcame the worst of the recovery process. And I started hiking again in preparation for the hot dog hike, which was that charity hike that I did on the AZT this spring with a group of 20 hikers led by a local mural artist named Joe Pagic. We raised $26,000 for the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. All of that felt really like purpose driven, like I was getting that second lease on life. So it is sort of a comeback story. Even doing the Colorado Trail this summer, I didn't like post all over Instagram and whatever about that because I wasn't really sure what 500 miles of hiking around 13,000 feet was going to look like for me. And so I kept that under wraps until I finished it. And I was like, yo, I did it. Like, I'm back. And that's when I was like, I told you before that my next plan was the Arizona Trail, but I didn't know what that was going to look like. So the Colorado Trail was sort of like a ramping back up for me. And that's when I knew that I was going to go at the AZT. I set myself a goal to do that in sub 35 days, no zeros, which is huge for me. I mean, you might remember us talking about like, I'm not typically a fast hiker. I like to enjoy having trampoline and living on trail. And this was like a completely different experience. If anything, I finally felt like I had something that I needed to prove to myself that I could crush it and, push my body and my mind harder than I ever had in my entire lifetime. And I succeeded at that as well. So yeah, I think it is a little bit of a comeback story, and I'm really proud of myself.
You should be. Absolutely. Congratulations.
Thanks, Doc.
That was a very dark moment to come back from. Not, a lot of uncertainty about what your future might look like, and you have battled through and put in the work that you need to do to get to where you are. So that's very impressive.
Thanks, man.
Well done, sir. All right, hey, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from the advertisers, pay a few bills. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Colorado Trail. We're going to talk a little bit about that rim to rim experience that I mentioned, and then I want to hear about the Arizona Trail. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We're talking to Jacob Pepper, aka Crush, and we've just heard a little bit about his backstory. We had a rollicking romp through the hiking pole with a new low score for him. So congratulations on that. And when we left, we were talking about you coming back from this accident, and that you did the Colorado Trail as kind of a lead up to the Arizona Trail. We wanted to kind of see how it was going to go. There wasn't a lot of fanfare, not a lot of social media posts about that because you weren't sure how it was going to go. And so did you undertake this on your own, or did you go with a buddy or two?
Yeah, no, the Colorado Trail was a solo start, but I touched momentarily on the fact that I made friends right out the gate, as I tend to do if I'm on a trail. Like, it was the middle of July, so that's like the beginning of the high season of southbounding the Colorado Trail. And it was a blast, man. I mean, meeting people. I've done 4 hikes now, and the first 2 were the 2 of the 3 big ones, right? So those are like 6-month endeavors. So I didn't know what I was in for this like 6-week hike, which I did in 5 on the Colorado Trail. I didn't know if I was going to make friends out there. And, 16 miles in, I'm camping with people and like having dinner together. And I'm like, oh, great. This is through hiking. Like, this is why I come out here, So, yeah, from there on, I had friends to hike with the entire trail.
Now, Crush, what is it about through hiking where you bond so quickly with people? I mean, you're fast friends. Sometimes these bonds that you form on the trail transcend, years. I mean, you stay in close contact. You talk to people all the time. You do future hikes with them. What is it about just being out there that causes these bonds?
It's a really good question, because everything that you just said is very true. I'm still in touch with most of my good friends from past hikes, dating back almost 4 years. And I think I said on the previous podcast that through hiking is like an accelerated existence. That you're going out there to live a lifetime in a short period of time. You're born, you live, and you die on trail. And you also know that everyone around you has the same purpose in mind. You're all moving in the same direction. You need camaraderie to survive in that environment. There's some kind of like implicit trust with other hikers that I can't really explain, because I'm less likely to just befriend somebody on the street in society. Not that I don't want to, but there's going to be more of a trust barrier to break down with total strangers. And on trail, maybe it's the simple fact that you're going to be working yourself, so and everybody else out there is doing the same thing, so you don't have to worry about like somebody rooting through your pack when you're off in the woods taking a crap, I don't know.
With your poop stick.
Yeah, with the poop stick. If
you meet somebody at a Starbucks, right? Okay, you can assume that both of you like coffee, but is that something you're really going to bond over and make it's a short meeting, right? It's probably a short encounter as you're standing in line waiting to pay for your coffee. But I think when you're out on the trail, there's an extended period of time you're together. Plus, I think there's much more than just, liking coffee that you have in common.
Yeah. Through hikers are a kind, right? Like, right. It takes a particularly strange individual who scores a maximum of a 75 on the sanity scale to take on that task in the first place. And so you get out there and you're like, oh, these are all like weirdos like me. So, I remember on the Appalachian Trail, I had friends within 24 hours that are still some of my best friends today. And
that's wild.
And we knew it then, not that we would be connected years later, but that we were friends. Like, you sit down at the picnic table at the Springer Mountain shelter. I only did 8 miles that day. You go up the Amicalola Falls Trail and park it at Springer Mountain. And everybody there is like, yeah, let's sit around the picnic table. It's like a summer camp vibe almost, like you said, it's not as short of a meeting. It's not like, well, I'm never going to see you again. It's like, I'll see you tomorrow. Most likely we're going to end up camping at the same place. So it's a mixture of things, both just kind of circumstantial as far as space and time go, but also deeper on like an existential level. Like everybody out there is sharing a similar life experience, and it brings them together.
Well said. Well said. Now, what was your approach to the Colorado Trail? Did you do a lot of research on it beforehand? What were you expecting?
I didn't. It was always kind of in the back of my mind, like, oh yeah, I hear that trail's cool. And I think realistically, I was gonna go crazy if I had to wait until the fall to hike the Arizona Trail. I needed to get on trail, like following all that car accident story and the hot dog hike, which was amazing. I made friends at the hot dog hike in 5 days' time, who I'm still friends with now. But yeah, it was 100 miles, and it's like, oh man, like I need, the itch was getting me really bad. And I talked to my buddy Uncle Nomad, who's one of my best friends in thru hiking. He was one of my major supporting elements on that solo Arizona Trail hike. He's done the Colorado Trail, and he said, oh yeah, man, you can just go for it. He's like, you're capable. You don't need to do any research. He goes, just go do it. I have all my gear. I was already feeling like physically, like I think I can do this. And in comparison to the High Sierra in May, the San Juans in August didn't sound so bad. So I just went for it. And yeah, the Colorado Trail, I think I would recommend that as a first through hike. Mile for mile, that was the most beautiful hiking I've ever done. And the trail itself, I mean, Colorado is known for being like a state of outdoorsy folks, right? So like their trail maintenance crews and the volunteer work that goes into all of that. I've never seen such a manicured trail in my life, which some people might frown on, I want to be rough and out in the sticks. And I mean, you're completely detached from the world. Half the Colorado Trail, you're hanging out over like 12,000 feet, right? It was just gorgeous and really, really, really nice hiking. And in comparison to the sufferfest that I experienced on the Arizona Trail, the Colorado Trail was like being in heaven as opposed to being in hell.
I'm going to have to put that on my list. I've got to go out there and do the Colorado Trail. I've heard so much about it. Followed Jeff Garmire's time on it when he was doing the documentary. It just looks spectacular, and it's part of the Tiara. Have you heard of the Tiara?
I have heard of the Tiara. That came up a lot on the CT, and you've already done the JMT, right?
Right. Yes. So
yeah, man,
knock off the Colorado Trail and then head out east to the Long Trail.
Yeah, about that, I think part of the long trails on the AT, right? I love the AT. It was my first hike. I'm from the East Coast. I love the green tunnel effect. I got caught up on the question that you asked me last time about whether to be below tree line or above tree line, because I'm imagining and remembering my AT experience with, just so much love for that part of the world. However, the JMT and the CT are like sisters. They are very similar, and they're like the two gnarliest sections of mountains in the country. And the Long Trail sort of feels like the redheaded stepchild in the crew. Just in comparison, what I know of the Long Trail, I don't know if I would be as stoked on that one. But
the history. I mean, I think it's the oldest thru hiking trail in the country.
Yeah, that definitely has something going for it for sure. And I want to do the Tiara. I didn't know about this until I was on the CT, and I was like, yo, that's sick. Like, I didn't know there was, the Triple Crown, Triple Tiara, and they're like the 3 short hikes that are, like you just said, not just beautiful short hikes, but historically really important for the context of thru hiking. And so I plan on it.
And same geographical region as the other 3 long trails.
Right.
Yeah,
they're all sort Central, of like a part.
You've got East Coast. Yeah.
They all at some point overlap with the Triple Crown, which I think is really cool.
That's right. Okay. So did it go as expected? How are you feeling at the end of the Colorado Trail? How was your body feeling? Were you able to successfully do what you wanted to do out there?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple times I was moving slower than I really wanted to be, sort of as a balance between making sure that my body was okay and also like caring more about the social aspect of the trail. Again, I made some really awesome friends out there, and at no point was I disappointed in myself or the experience. I did have like some recurring tension in my neck where I've been in recovery for over a year now, which for the record, I've experienced significantly less of on my AZT run. So I was actually curious in my own head if that had anything to do with the fact that so much of the Colorado Trail is at elevation, like high elevation. The San Juans, you spend at least 100 miles hanging out at like 13,000 feet. I loved it, man. I don't know, I don't have any complaints both with the overall experience and with my personal performance. And I think that's what gave me the confidence to hit the ground running on the Arizona Trail.
Okay, and let's talk about the Arizona Trail, because I know you said earlier that you set a goal for yourself to do the Arizona Trail in less than 35 days. Why set that goal?
It was arbitrary. I mean, as far as the number goes, I was just like, what's something that might be achievable for me? And I think I chose what I thought would be like the whole time. I told like a handful of my friends about that before I got on the trail. I didn't want to broadcast that, like, I need to do this trail in this amount of time, because I would have hated having to stomach failure if I didn't pull it off, right? So only my closest friends in hiking knew that that was my plan, which is like something like 23 miles per day, no zeros. And that's including time spent getting in and out of town for resupplies. And I ended up doing it in sub 33 instead. The reason that I set this goal in the first place, to move faster, more aggressively than I ever had, as I touched on momentarily a little bit ago, I wanted to push myself. It was like, this is the time. I knew I was going to be mostly alone, if not entirely alone. And I've never had, I've always kind of balanced my personal daily mileage with discussion with Tramily of where are you guys planning on camping tonight? And I'm a big fan of camping with my Tramily, because otherwise you're not really going to see each other much at all on trail. So, it was an opportunity. And kind of like I said, I needed to know that I could do it. I've always said previously, I got nothing to prove. I'm not out here trying to show off, and that's true in this case as well. It wasn't for everyone else, or I would have broadcast it from the get-go. It was for me. I needed to know in my body and in my heart and mind that I had overcome what I have been through in the past year.
Well said, sir. And why did you pick southbound?
Oh, well, it's very similar to the big hikes, northbound in the spring, southbound in the fall. Arizona at the Utah border and down to about Pine, which is 350-ish miles going southbound into the hike. It's up on the Colorado Plateau, or part of it. I'm not very good with geography. As I understand it, it's part of the Colorado Plateau. Basically, it's 2,000 feet higher than the rest of the state. And there's this area that is like a stark drop off, and it's called the Mogollon Rim. And once you drop off the rim, it gets hotter and drier. So the first 350 miles of the hike, you want to do that before it gets cold. Right now in Flagstaff, they're like sub-freezing temperatures at nighttime. And it was pushing into that when I was up there. Before you get to the north rim of the Grand Canyon going southbound, you hit 9,000 feet just like walking. Like you're not going up a mountain. You're just out there at high elevation. And then the south rim of the Grand Canyon is like 8,000 feet. Flagstaff's like 7,000 feet. And then you drop off. And when you're south of there, if you're not going up a mountain, you're chilling between like 2,000 and 4,000 feet of elevation. So, I live in Tucson, and in the summertime here, it gets like, I don't know, pretty regularly over 110 degrees. On really hot days, it pushes 120 a couple times every summer. And this year was, despite the heavy snow, it was hotter and drier than usual. So it's basically a necessity. If you're going to hike in the fall, you got to start at the north end and go to the south end. And that's why in the spring, you start at the south end and go to the north end, because as it warms up, you want to be at the cooler elevations.
Yeah. Didn't Phoenix have like 39 consecutive days of like over 110 or 105?
Yeah, there were definitely records set this summer, miserable records. I remember a celebration when it was like the first time it was going to be below 95 degrees in like 4 months or something. And, the little bit of monsoon season that we got, it was like so welcome every single time that it rained. And then funny enough, when I got up to the Utah border and up until the Grand Canyon, I was getting rained on for 3 days straight. And I was like, this is different. And then, once I got to the South Rim and from there, I didn't see rain again for the rest of the trail.
All right. Now you are admittedly a green tunnel guy. You like the AT, you like that experience. You did the PCT. So you spent a lot of time in the Sierras as well. And in, Oregon and Washington. I know you also did spend some time in the desert on the PCT in Southern California. But what is your impression? What's your take on desert hiking? I mean, you're talking about the last few days or the last number of days on the Arizona Trail, being out there in the desert, and it's so hot, and it's just, what do we call it? Brown, salty sludge, just kind of hanging on to your skin. Do you have a newfound appreciation for desert hiking or not?
Absolutely. I love it. In fact, I grew up on the coast. I lived in the Caribbean. I used to work on sailboats, like sailing on day charters. And when I did the Appalachian Trail, so in the back of my mind, my whole life, I was like, what's the desert like? And when I did the Appalachian Trail, I was like, okay, I found my new thing. And I moved by choice to Tucson, not to Phoenix, not to Flagstaff. You go up in northern Arizona, it's like gorgeous pine country. Southern Arizona is the desert. It's the Sonoran Desert, which is the most biodiverse desert on the planet. Like, it's a really cool place to experience life. It's very different from everything I had known previously. And my first year and a half in Tucson, I was working in construction. So I had already had a little bit of exposure to like the brutality of being outside here. But hiking through the desert, even on the PCT. So I started the PCT in March. The desert of the PCT didn't hit like the desert of the AZT. And, this spring, it was very snowy. So everybody who was doing the Arizona Trail got like snowy Arizona. Well, I was out there in late summer, and it was so brutal and magical in that way. It was everything I wanted it to be and more. The hardest part, can I tell you a couple of short bits about it? Okay, so the hardest parts of the Arizona Trail for me personally were going through this. There's 3 sets of mountains back to back when you drop off the Mogollon Rim. They're called the Mazatzals, the Four Peaks Wilderness, and the Superstitions. And all three of those mountains, I think because it was a heavy snow year, the desert thrives on that snow melt, right? So everything out there had been overgrown. And because I was the first southbound hiker, there was like zero trail maintenance. So I'm walking through these three mountain ranges that are overgrown on the trail like this. Like you're like pushing your way through the plant life that is covering the trail head high. And everything in the state of Arizona is sharp. Everything. Like all the plants. I tried to document it. I got like 10 different plants in picture form that are spiny. And there's one in particular that I have a newfound, I would say love, but let's call it respect. It's called cat claw mimosa. And if you can imagine what a cat claw looks like, the plant is covered in spines that are that curled shape. And as you're passing through it, it hooks into your flesh, and then like it's like a barbed end almost. It tears as you walk through it. And the amount of blood that I lost through my legs and hands on that hike, and that section specifically, that like 200 miles of those three mountain ranges, I couldn't believe it. And while it was happening, I was very angry about it, like the whole time. And
that's some good type 2 fun right there.
Yeah, most definitely good type 2 fun. In fact, I think I'm going to get a tattoo of cat claw because it had such an impact. Like that might be my AZT hike tattoo. Yeah, so there was that. That's the desert in a nutshell. As Half Double has always told me, everything in the desert is trying to kill you, including the plants. And then the other thing that I experienced desert hiking was you come down out of the superstitions and you go into the low desert. The low point of the AZT is the lowest I've been since I moved out west. It's 1,600 feet of elevation. And that's the Gila River. And getting to the Gila and then hiking past and through that whole area, basically south of Superior, Arizona, it was brutally hot. I mean, like the likes of which I've never experienced because I'm doing, trying to do 23 miles per day on average through that section and suffering it. And I really kind of pushed myself into the realms of dehydration, heat exhaustion, true, potentially dangerous suffering of the elements in the desert. Like when you imagine the cartoon image of the heat waves coming up off the ground where there's a cow skull laying there, the number of cow skulls that I saw just right next to the trail on this hike, it was like I was in that cartoon image. And, the whole like, must get water, like that was reality. You're hiking 20 miles between poop-filled cattle ponds that you have to filter to survive because there was no puddles or flowing water of snow melt or monsoon leftovers or anything. And being the front runner of the SOBO season this year for that whole 500 miles from Pine to Mexico, I was like going in blind. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
I was going in blind on the water situation. So there were times that I was carrying like 4.5 liters of water all over my pack. And then, 5 miles later, I'm like, oh, there's water here. I wasn't sure because nobody had commented on Far Out, Gut Hook, whatever, to say, I checked and there's water here. I was the guy doing that, which was surreal. And in its own way, exciting.
Yes, I imagine so. Exciting in the most dangerous kind of excitement. Let me ask you, I mean, you're out there. The heat is it's going pretty good. You've got dehydration, you've got heat exhaustion, you've got bleached cow skulls on the ground, and you're all by yourself. You're alone out there. Did you have any existential moments? Like, I mean, what goes through your head at a time like that? I mean, it's got to be Scary.
Yeah, it absolutely was scary. There were a couple of days on this hike that coincided with the two situations I just described to you. One that happened near the end of like getting shredded by the trail, and one that happened near the end of the hardest part of the entire trail, which was low elevation, extremely hot and dry, hundreds of miles of being by myself in mountain lion country in the late summer. So like the only thing keeping the mountain lions out of my way was the fact that they're also hot and dry and staying in their little holes during the daytime. The number of times that I was like walking along mountain lion tracks that were like freshly planted there the night before. And it's just like, okay, like, you know, I'm a wild animal out here. And that's the existential experience that I had. What started as moments of fear and apprehension with the environment and the wildlife eventually dissolved into pure survival instinct, feeling like I was just another critter crawling along the dusty trail. You know, I really kind of I don't know, detached from myself. I wouldn't say dissociated, you know. Oh, on the note of dissociation, I just want to throw this out there. I don't know if I would have been able to do what I did if I weren't stone cold sober on this hike. That means THC, nicotine, alcohol, psilocybin, LSD, anything else you can possibly think of, none. And it's been like 8 weeks now since I randomly was like, oh yeah, sober stint. You know, like I like to do that every now and then. It feels really good I told my friends in the midst of that I was getting all of the altered states of consciousness that I needed from dehydration, sleep deprivation, and movement, you know?
You don't need anything else. You don't need to add that.
Absolutely not. And I'm not sure I would have been able to survive the brutality that I subjected myself to if I hadn't been completely clear of mind.
Wow.
Yeah. And in spite of that, I definitely like had, you know, the kind of like spiritual experience that people often associate with like psychedelics and whatnot. And, if anything, it felt more pure and real.
Okay. Now let's go back to something Half Double said. He said Half Double's a he, right? Or is that a she?
Yes.
He said everything in the desert is trying to kill you. Everything in the desert is trying to kill you. You just mentioned fresh mountain lion tracks. And of course, during the day, they're being smart, unlike you and other hikers out there. They're staying in the shade and they're sleeping and trying to stay cool. But when it comes to then pitching your tent at night and camping for the night, what's going through your mind there? Any mountain lion encounters out there? Did you see anything?
Yeah, so I'm really glad you asked that question. I actually was just thinking about this earlier today. There was this day where anybody that's hiked the AZT may remember the Revis Ranch area, and I'm going southbound. So I started around Revis Ranch and ended at the end of a canyon whose name slips my mind. I think Whitford Canyon was in the middle of that day, which was the most beautiful part of the entire AZT. And I would love to be there while there's water flowing through it, because there's like saguaro growing in the bottom of this canyon and all the rock is red. It was super gorgeous. Anyways, that whole day, it was like a survival. I made a comment on Gut Hook that said, that this one situation I was in played out like a real life episode of Legends of the Hidden Temple. I don't know if you ever saw that show. When I was a kid, it was on Nickelodeon, and it was like a game show based around like jungle survival, like Indiana Jones looking obstacle courses. And, you know, it's like, dodge the temple guard and jump over the pit of alligators and, you know, all this stuff. Well, I had to get water where you go to this would-be trough that's bone dry, and next to it is an ammo box that just says AZT. You open that up and it's got all these directions in it, and I had to like face off. Like, so I think rattlesnakes are really cool, and I probably saw like 7 or 8 rattlers on this hike, but this one snake that I had to get past in like a tight little 10-foot wide canyon space, he was like the guard of this water source that I had to go to. And clearly he's been through this many times, because I've never seen such an angry rattler snake in my entire life. And poor guy. I mean, I was like screaming at him, like, I have to get this water, because I was in full on survival mode. And so leaving that situation, that afternoon, I'm following, like I said, following what appears to be less than 24-hour old, freshly planted mountain lion tracks coming up out of this canyon area. And at this point, I've had one of those moments I was talking about earlier where I have like nearly dissociated from my human form, and I feel like an animal on this like survival journey. And I was like, I am tired and I want to pitch before dark tonight. And I was like, I need to get out of this area because I can tell I am like where the kitty cats live. And I stopped to look at my phone, and it's like getting dark. And I stopped to look at my phone to try and plan out, like, if look for any comments on Gut Hook of somebody saying like, there's a place to camp here. Well, the only comment that I saw was this person from like last year or something being like, I camped on top of a fire ant pile and they chewed through my tent and it was terrifying. So I'm like, great. I really need to pitch before dark so that doesn't happen to me. And as I'm standing there and it's like getting dark out, and I'm completely alone in probably at least 20 miles in either direction, deep in the wilderness of the desert, I swear that 10 or 15 feet up the hill from me, I heard what sounded like a baby kitty cat, like a meow type sound that was like, you know, there, very close by. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, cats, just let me get out of your woods, please. Like, I need to sleep. And so I'm like, I just couldn't believe that was happening. Like, it was hilarious to me because of the way that whole day had gone. And then it's like, I'm potentially, you know, the classic thing that people say about wildlife is don't get between the mama and the baby. And I swear I heard a cougar kitten within rock throwing distance, and I was like, I got to get out of here. So I just start moving like twice as fast as normal, and I'm like, I got to find somewhere to camp. And I come around this bend, which the way the trail is traversing this area, I'm 100 yards from where I had just been standing, and I can see it. Like, there's the spot where I was just standing, and I swear I heard a cougar kitten, and there's a perfect campsite right there. And I was just like, I'm tired. I need to sleep. And I put my stuff down and I pitched my tent and I got inside of it. And by the time I'm like zipping my tent up, it's dark outside. And I was just like, hopefully cougars aren't interested in, you know, Dyneema fabric, like pitched out in the middle of nowhere. Like that I was depending on the mesh wall of my duplex to create a barrier between me and the mama kitty cat that I'm pretty certain lives, you know, on the other side of this hill that I'm sleeping on. So that happened. That was fun.
They must be Dyneema averse because here you are talking to us. It all
indeed.
Worked out. What a day.
Yeah.
Though. What a day.
One of many.
Yes. Well, you mentioned a little bit earlier in the episode, you said that you were a different person when you got off the trail. What can you quantify that at all? What has changed about Jacob Pepper after the AZT?
I achieved what I set out to do on a level that I've never done before. You know, I've been through some other weird stuff at sea on sailboats and that car accident last year and survived that, but that was all passive. That was like it was happening to me. And this was the first time in my life that I was able to say, I am consciously choosing the brutality and I'm going to push through it and succeed. And I beat the goal that I set for myself. And I've never been so proud of my accomplishments. And I guess confidence is a good one-word way to sum that reality up. I had always wondered if I could do that sort of thing. I mean, you know, the AZT FKT is like 13 days or something. That I'm not a superhuman, and I wasn't athletic before I started through hiking. So for me, what came out to be an average of like 24 and change miles per day without stopping, no zeros. You know, one of my old Tramleys was named Endless Zeros because of how many times that I zeroed on the Pacific Crest Trail. No zeros in a month. And as I pushed and pushed and pushed, I was like going up. I was ramping up. The hardest thing about finishing the Arizona Trail was finishing the Arizona Trail. You know, if it had just kept going, I would have just kept going. That's like an existential challenge, returning to being stationary and being in society. You know, I have a roof over my head. Thank you, Benzie and Devin. I have really awesome people in my life that care about me, and that blessing does not go unnoticed. But being out there on trail is where I feel the most self-actualized, the most real version of myself. And the Arizona Trail, I kind of blew my own mind seeing what I was capable of.
Yeah, I love that. The self-confidence. I mean, you're out there in the middle of nowhere by yourself in extreme conditions, just doing incredibly hard stuff, and you successfully complete the AZT. Being able to do that, I mean, taking that experience and that confidence builder, you're capable of anything.
It certainly feels that way.
Yes. Congratulations. Now, as a segue to your future episode, because we're going to have you back on, I had mentioned I had seen something in one of your social media posts that I was going to ask you about, and I'm going to. This is unlike the hiking pole, in which I don't want a whole lot of explanation. Maybe you just name these things for me, and that'll be the teaser for next episode when we do a deep dive on them. So I think in one of your posts about the AZT, you said this was one of the top 5 most brutal physical feats that you've done. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
So if this is one of the top 5, I want to hear, just name for us the other 4.
I think I said top 3. I'll try to come up with 4 other things. Top of the list, High Sierra in May. I can't communicate the brutality that went into that month of my life. Again, that was happening to me. Like, yes, I chose to go in May, but I didn't exactly know what I was in for. And I think if I had to choose between the two, again, I would easily redo the Arizona Trail in a hot, dry fall instantly before having to go through the High Sierra in May again.
Okay. High Sierra in May.
Yes. I also mentioned difficult experiences at sea. I'm not going to go into that, but let's just say that sailing 2,000 miles through the middle of the ocean is a really difficult reality to experience.
Okay.
I've done that a handful of times. And then, geez, I wasn't ready for this question. It's definitely like, you know, there are moments of like physical feats or accomplishments. Okay, like the Tehachapi Challenge. That was one that I consciously made the choice to do, and I was like, yeah, that was one of a fleeting little moment of pride in my abilities and accomplishments, because the desert of the PCT was a ramp up to Tehachapi, which I want to say is around mile 500. where there's this gap leading into Tehachapi that's 49 miles long from Hikertown. And one of the many challenges in through hiking is go from Hikertown to Tehachapi in a 24-hour window without stopping. And my Tramley, the trench pullers, and I did that in 20 hours, 49 miles. That was really cool.
The trench pullers, the endless zeros, the Tramley names are fantastic.
Man, I want to say, like you said, you give trail names to your episodes. If you have a Tramley that you're tight with and that you're traveling with, and you haven't given yourselves a Tramley name, get on it. You know, on the Colorado Trail, I had Free Slurpee Day and Mellies and Stoves. Mellies and Stoves was a bunch of ultralight kids, and half of them were carrying Melanzana hoodies and stoves, which is like anti-ultralight, right? So it was like a running joke, like, what do you know about Mellies and Stoves? You know, like it's so much fun to have like a crew name. It makes you feel like a bunch of badasses when you're all together.
That's right. And you know what? I'm not gonna pressure you to come up with two other ones. If it was actually the top three most brutal, then we'll leave it at that. So that's fantastic. What is the next adventure for Jacob Pepper?
Florida Trail, January 1st, 2024.
Okay. January 1st, starting off the year right.
Yeah, that's my intention. You know, I want to. New Year's Eve doesn't hold a lot of draw for me these days. I'm not like, let's go out and party and like watch fireworks, like whatever. I'd rather take the opportunity to, like you said, start the year right, like hit the trail on January 1st. And that's kind of the ideal season for the Florida Trail. And I've done one overnight on the Florida Trail, and I was out there for an hour when I saw my first 8-foot gator. And I was like, this is awesome. You know, like, I remember when I first read about the Florida Trail, it was about a kid who through skated it, and he called the Florida Trail the death metal of hiking. And I was like, that sounds great. Like, sign me up. So it's finally happening, and I'm really looking forward to it.
All right. Well, you got to come back on and tell us some gator stories in addition to the other two most brutal feats that you've done. So, all right. Hey, Crush, you know where we are right now?
Where are we?
Hiking hacks.
Time for you to share a hiking hack with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. What do you have?
Okay. It goes with the theme, and it goes very much against anything that I would have said prior to doing the Arizona Trail. And that is, however hard you think you can push yourself, push harder. Not that, you know, it's not about like how many miles per day you're doing. It's about gaining that sense of accomplishment and self-confidence and knowing what you're capable of. That experience for me was life-changing. And I mean, you said, you know, now you can do anything. I believe that that's true. I think I'm going to do better at my next job interview. You know, I think I'm going to do better in my interpersonal relationships. I think I value everything about my existence more now than before that trail. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that with apprehension and doubt at the start, I made a choice to go as hard as I could. And near the end, like I said, it was getting harder and hard. Like I was pushing harder and pushing harder until I did 211 miles in 7 days, which I've already said that once, but like that to me is like, what? Like I can do anything, you know, and that feeling is invaluable. And I think that through hiking is a place where you can find that in yourself.
Have you found the limit?
You know, I thought I had. We didn't actually go into the whole rim to rim experience. That was like day 4 of the hike. And I was like, oh man, like I found my limit. But I even said at the end of that, like, you know, thoughtful, wordy Instagram post that I made, that I'm excited to know that I'm in a place in my life where I can continue to find it and push it. And by the end of the hike, I had done bigger stuff than that day in the Grand Canyon. And like I said, if that trail had just kept going all the way to, Chile, I would have just kept going. And who knows what I would be able to find, like, where is that limit?
You're in a mode. I mean, we are all so lucky that the trail did end so we could have this conversation with you. You'd probably still be out there for all we know.
Probably.
All right. Hey, so there you have it. We are just about done here. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with Jacob. I want to thank him for coming on this week. Crush, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
The only place I really actively use social media anymore is Instagram, and that's largely because the thru hiking community, I feel like, is most active and most able to share and express their experiences through that platform. And that's at Narwhal 138. Narwhal, like the unicorn of the sea, but with a G on the front, like gnarly. So that's GNARWHAL 138.
Of course, there's a G on the front of it. What else would there be? Remember to check out Hiker Trash Radio on social media as well. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you have comments or clips you want to share, you send it to me at hikertrashradio@gmail.com.
Off the beaten path.
Now, unfortunately, Crush, we can't always be on the trail. And when we're not, we need to find a way to get our adventure fix. So I'm going to ask you to share some outdoor adventure media with our listeners to help them get by. This could be a book, a movie, documentary. We call this segment Off the Beaten Path. What do you have for us?
Okay. Shoot. Last time I already did Through Hiking Will Break Your Heart. I love that book. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. So I was carrying a paper book for the first week of the trail, which was different for me and exciting. And I actually read a paperback. I don't know if this is adventure media, but it fit very well in the context of through hiking and brutality and survival. And that is the post-apocalyptic fiction, The Road by Cormac McCarthy. That book, I was bawling my eyes out by the end of that book. So, if last time I also talked about the Fellowship of the Ring. So if fiction counts, I would say read The Road while you're on trail. I think that they go hand in hand.
Excellent choice. That is an outstanding choice. Nice job. Nice job. All right. And to finish us up tonight.
What have we not asked you?
Before we wrap things up, just one more segment. What have I not asked you that you're dying to tell us about? What can't wait till next time?
Shoot, I'm not going to lie. You did a really good job of asking all the questions. I would have wanted to tell that story about sleeping near mountain lions, and you led into that. Yeah, that was perfect. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything pressing that can't wait till next time.
Okay. All right, then we are finished. I want to thank you for coming on, Jacob. We wish you the very best on the Florida Trail to start the new year. Can't wait to hear some alligator stories. This is going to be epic. As we close up today, any shout outs to friends and family? We've already talked about, some great trail names out there. There's the Field Trip 5. We've heard about Half Double and was it Shiny?
Yep.
Uncle Nomad. Anybody else out there you want to throw a shout out to?
Yeah. Shoot. I mean, I could really just go off the deep end giving shout outs, right? Most recently, I also touched on the Free Slurpee Day crew and Mellies and Stoves on the Colorado Trail. All those kids were just so much fun to hike with, and I made a lot of really awesome friends out there, and ended up finishing the trail just with my friend Betty White. Shout out to her. That was really awesome. And on that note, I thought about it on the Arizona Trail. I wasn't with a tramily, but I was my tramily. So, and I named my tramily Crush Groove.
A tramily of one, Crush Groove. Outstanding. All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you dropped your poop stick when you're running from the cougar and jumping over the rattlesnake on the AZT. The trail is the trail. Embrace the sock.